It's Wednesday, January 18th, 2012. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, I can't believe we never did a show on Yotsuba. So,
Let's do this.
I think I'm going to run.
Run what?
I mean, Carousel is obviously a scam, so fuck that noise.
That kind of running, yeah.
That kind of running.
Yep, I'll, tell me how it goes. Send me an email from Beyond.
You mean from Sanctuary?
Yeah, and then 4 months from now or so, I will have a better strategy, and I will do a lot. I won't make the same mistakes you made.
It amazes me that when I was a little kid, like, I remember watching Logan's Run and not... Like, I took it completely seriously, like kids take everything. I mean,
took it seriously. I like shit like that, sort of eerie and quiet and long and a lot sort of like, get that atmosphere of, ooh, it's all weird sci-fi and this crazy shit out there.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I would take, like, Project A-Co seriously at that same time in my life.
Maybe.
But I remember...
I took Tank Police seriously.
I remember wanting to know what the deal was with Logan's Run, but being too young to, like, really grasp it. So I watched it again in, like, the last 5 or 6 years, and it's a pretty shit movie.
I like it.
All things considered.
I still like it.
The thing is, movies like that...
I mean, I'm not saying it's a great epic film of all greatness, but I
like a lot of the aspects. It just has the problem that a lot of those kinds of movies have, where it's really long, but independently, the majority of the scenes don't actually move the plot in any meaningful way.
Well, yeah.
And they really take a lot of, like, it's like bad cinema 101. Like, hey, let's take a gigantic detour to explore this part of the world no one cares about.
But that's what I like.
Zoom in on the doctor getting cut up because you all wanted to see that.
Yep. Sure did.
But yeah, I'm going to run because, my otaku expiration date
Well, I mean,
has
I don't
come
understand.
nigh.
I don't understand, right? It's like you can carousel or you can run. What happens if you run? They shoot you. Well, you're dying either way, so you might at least have a chance of
Scott,
making it if you run.
I think you forget that Carousel promises renewal. If you make it, if you survive, you are renewed.
But if you run...
Just like how in The Running Man, if you get away, you get that money and you're set for life.
No one gets away in The Running Man.
Those two people got away.
Arnold, that's the only guy.
Arnold. I really want to. I don't have the time or the energy to do it now. But after we watch Commando over the Front Row Crew Epic New Year's Party, and Conan, I kind of want to take every Arnold movie and mash them up into another movie.
A lot of people have done that already.
I have not seen even one person who made a feature-length movie that was nothing more than mashups of scenes from all other Arnold
This is
movies.
internet. It exists.
I'm doubtful. I will try to find it after the show.
So today I went, there was a SOPA, I'm sure everyone saw a SOPA blackout protest on the internet. I went to the physical SOPA protest near the senator's office on 49th and 3rd, which I'm on 49th and 7th, so I just had to walk
I would have
east.
gone. However, all the people protesting SOPA have jobs.
Well, yeah, so I didn't want to go there to protest. I just wanted to go there to see how it was going. And there are a few things going on there. Number one, that's an area I bike past on the way to work often, so I knew the area. They basically there was an area with a wide sidewalk. They chopped half of it off, and they took away the parking spots in the street, and they fenced it off with little metal brackets that the cops use. The cops are standing around lazily, going, "Yep." Hey, yep, because all the protesters are just sort of quiet, holding up their signs, because they're just normal people. They're not crazy hippies. And was most interesting is, it filled in. Like, there were hundreds of people there packing into that thing. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, well, the moral, don't fuck with the internet.
A lot of people taking photos and such, but pretty much what the cops did is they were like, you either got to go in the fence or move along. You're not allowed to, they didn't let people loiter outside the fence. So I was like, we loitered for about 10 minutes outside the fence, took some pictures, walked around, they're on my Flickr, and then left and got lunch because not going in the fence because that means you can't get out of the fence easily, and what if you have to pee?
Yep.
And I have to go back to work, and it's cold, and I want to eat lunch.
Yeah, I feel like the internet protest is the real force here.
But one thing was it was basically sort of this long rectangle, right? At the very end, they had some guest speakers and whatever. They had a microphone and a sound system, and they got on the news crews to show up. And I was like, whoa, they got a sound system. That's impressive.
So it's telling.
But I was looking at the sound system. It's like 2 speakers on tripods and a microphone and, a box of equipment. And I'm like, there's no way anyone is going to hear that. As soon as a truck comes by, you're not going to hear shit. And the traffic was relatively heavy, constant. Like, I couldn't take a picture of it from across the street because there were so many cars.
Nah.
And when they actually started talking, you could fucking hear. It was loud and clear. I was like, whoa, impressive.
Scott, I've looked into those systems because there was a time when we would go to conventions that did not necessarily provide. So
But this was so good. Like New York City street in the air with cars and trucks driving by, only 2 speakers, and you could hear it loud and clear like 1 or 2 blocks away. That is a good system set up well.
Interesting how this one-time kind of ad hoc, not planned that far in advance protest was able to be so well organized.
Well, they were like, it was a meetup, and it was the New York Tech meetup, which I don't want to talk about them now.
Yeah,
but
it also had a coherent, specific message.
And like the meetup people were there wearing little meetup aprons because they were so proud that meetup was used to get it together, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I used to be a member of meetup, and then I dropped because I got all these kind of pointless
Well,
meetup
pretty much
notices.
anytime you join a meetup, they start emailing you. So you have to unsubscribe from each and every meetup, and it's whatever.
Yeah.
I've sort of managed it by unsubscribing from everything. But yeah, I was impressed that many people actually showed up. And, if you look, right, people have these short memories. It seems like everyone but us has a short memory. It's like, we remember when we fought and lost against the DMCA. And
Fuck that. Remember the CBD TPA?
Right, and then we fought and won against that, and we fought and won against Coica, and I think there were a couple others in there too, right? And it feels like every other year, we had to fight off one of these things and won, but we barely fought and won and shut down most of these things. And now this one, right, is just basically it's like people like, oh, watch out for PIPA 2 or SOPA 2. It's like, what do you mean? PIPA is just Coica CBD TPA 4. It's not, right? It's not SOPA 1.
CBD TPA was pretty much the worst one.
Yeah.
And luckily,
it was real bad.
that never got revisited because if it did, you got nothing on these protests.
But the point is we got, it's going the other way. We're getting angrier and more people every time. The next time they try
You've
this,
got to get mad.
the next time they try this shit, like a year or 2 from now, you're gonna see if there were 500 to 1,000 people this time, there's gonna be 2,000 next time.
Well, look at
and
the opposite
5,000
side
the
talking
next
points.
time.
The opposite talking points now are basically things like, oh, so Obama and all these people are clearly just, in the pocket of Silicon Valley and these big corporations.
That's awesome. If they were in the pocket of Silicon Valley, I would vote for them because you know what? Better, at least they'll be corrupt on my side as opposed to being corrupt on the other side. So check this out. This is crazy. Next, coming up soon, I don't know exactly when, is MegaCon, which is February, sometime in February. MegaCon is in Orlando, sort of everything con with comics and anime, but it's mostly one of those cons where it's just buy shit, right?
Yep, I've never been to it, not really planning on going to it.
There is a comic store the name of this comic store is, quote, A Comic Shop.
Not bad.
Okay, it's
Not bad.
www.acomicshop.com. They're going to be at MegaCon. Probably, I imagine they'll have a booth there. They are in Winter Park, Florida, which is pretty close to MegaCon, right? And they have a flyer that they're going to distribute. An advertisement on a piece of paper that, it's usually what you do to advertise your shit, right? Is you give out a piece of paper with an ad on it. This ad was 75% paid for by DC Comics, which is why it's covered in DC Comics characters and logos and does not contain any Marvel Comics characters logos on it, okay? But it's mostly an ad for this shop, and this is what the ad looks like. The ad says, DC Comics 52 Justice League, Robama wants you to buy American. And then at the bottom it says, trade in any manga volume, number 1, get any DC New 52, number 1, for free. So if you go to this comic shop, you can take any manga volume you have that's number 1, trade it in, and they'll give you one flimsy-ass comic book for free.
So, is this just not an extension of the long-standing comic shop owners' weird anger and hatred over manga being popular?
This is created a giant internet flame wars of awesomeness.
Of course.
And, there's so many aspects, right? It's basically there's the aspect of, these people recognize that manga makes money, but they don't understand it. So they're, right? And they just want to make money off the shit.
No, they just want to get a bunch of manga for cheap that they can then sell to make money.
Well, that too, there's so many aspects of this. You could spend all day going over them, but it's just like, wow, these comic shops, they really don't get it. And it's like doing something like this is like you might as well have just taken a giant roll of paper, like in the olden days when you'd print a banner on your Apple II with 2 cakes at the end and just write, we don't get it, and hang it right up above your store.
But at the same time, they might get it if you look at this from this, if you assume that they're savvy, if you try to pretend, all right, these guys clearly have an angle and are intelligent. What could it be? Which, funnily enough, if you take that approach to a stupid person's, attempts at getting something they want, you'll usually come up with pretty crazy motivations
Yeah.
that are the only way to make it sense. But with these people, you could argue that they don't care about the people who read manga and the people who have diverse interests and the people who are interested in, visual media. They're catering to their base. And their base is probably, if comic shops that I've been to in the last few years, with the exceptions of cool ones like Bergen Street, are to be any indication, their base is a combination of people who buy every Spider-Man, people who buy airsoft guns.
People who buy everything with Wolverine on the cover.
Yeah, but I think the airsoft guns are actually the majority of the market there.
Right? But it's sort of like, on the one hand, it's like, okay, are you trying to convert manga people to reading DC Comics?
That's not going to work.
Are they going to really come in and dump all their shitty manga they never want to read again? Not likely, right? Number two, maybe all the regular comics guys, all of them have like a spare manga volume around that they don't want. But it's like I have all the DC 52 #1 issues, and I wouldn't trade a manga volume for any of them. You should trade if you did trade a manga volume 1 for a DC 52 trade #1 volume. That would be a fair trade, and then this would be cool, and no one would complain.
I guess what's always fascinated me is this weird.
If I had a comic shop, I would do any trade. I would do used for used one-to-one trades, because I would sell used stuff straight up like GameStop did, like a used bookstore does, and I would say bring in a used book, take a used book.
I guess I've just never understood the weird comic shop or comic book fan narrow nerd focus anger at a similar thing being popular among a different demographic.
Yeah, I mean, why don't it's always cool to see there are comic shops that sort of get you like Comicopia in Boston. It's like they got some ladies there that understand the mangas.
I mean, not to say
so
that
they load up on the mangas and the regular kind. They load up on everything.
Not to say that the American manga industry understood anything, and you can see what they did by and large.
Tokyo Pop, yeah, okay.
But it amazes me that this sort of sentiment can still exist in the modern era.
It's just how come it seems like people who run companies.
I mean, do they think that people like us started reading manga because we were bamboozled by some marketing and that they just have to trick us back in to remind us how much we love Green Lantern and all of his bullshit? I stopped reading things like Green Lantern because I've always kind of hated stuff like that.
It's just in general across all business in society, right? Especially nerd businesses. Why is it that people who work for these companies, their job 24/7 is to do this thing, comics or comic shop, right? Or whatever it is that they're doing, movies, who knows? They never get it. None of them, there are hardly any of them that get it. It's
now,
the only people who get it are the Hatsune Miku people and Valve, right? And it's who else? No one else gets it. But meanwhile, there's millions of nerds across the world, and all of them get it. But no one who actually works for a company who has a job of doing it gets it. But people who do it just in their spare time totally get it.
Yep,
Why the fuck
look at the enforcers?
Doesn't anyone who gets it run a company?
Look at the enforcers at PAX who run different departments and everything. It's not like they're spending 40 hours a week planning that, and yet go to a professionally run real convention, and it's a different venue, a different kind of event. I'm not going to say that the Board of Trade is going to have an awesome convention with drinking and partying all night, but they fail at the simple stuff like chairs showing up in time or speakers or microphones.
I just don't know why when it's people whose job it is to do something. There's almost no. You could list on a few hands, maybe even just one hand, the companies that get it right, and pretty much every other company gets it wrong. But if you go on the internet and just go to forums and stuff, where just people doing shit for free, everyone gets it right almost always.
Well, here with this whole manga comics thing, there's a big Venn diagram. There's two demographics that are really involved here. There's the hardcore American superhero comic nerds, not American comics, American superhero comics. They're the only demographic this ad is aimed at. The other demographic is the equal, pretty much identical mirror image of this. That is I'm a fan of manga because I like manga and the things that I perceive manga to be. I therefore hate American comics, which I perceive as being nothing but superhero comics. Those are the only two demographics involved in this entire internet flame war.
Anyway.
Nobody else is involved or cares.
It's sort of jingoistic and ignorant.
Yeah,
And it doesn't reflect good on
you
that
know,
shop.
it is telling.
Or DC.
We bought all 52 of the new 52, and we're going to review them all on the
for
show.
research purposes.
Yeah, but we're going to review them on the show. And
Well, we should have done it already.
Yes.
They're already coming out with like number 6s, I think.
I got to tell you, I expected a slog, but I went in with an open mind. And you know what? Some of them, remember our reviews, were pretty good. In fact, I liked a lot of them more than Scott did. But at the same time, it was such a slog to read them all. And you know what? I was at Bergen Street Comics the other day.
There are people who buy think about it, there are people who buy that stack monthly. Those are monthly comics.
So, Scott,
every month they get that stack.
I was at Bergen Street Comics the other day for the Johnny Wander book thing, which was packed, like crazy.
Well, it's a small
packed.
store, right? So even like 100 people would pack it.
Yeah, but it was like
But
crazy,
yeah, it was
crazy
packed. Of course.
So I was there, and there were a bunch of the 52s. I think issue 4 or 5 was up on the shelf.
Yep.
So I pick a couple up, and the few comics I liked have devolved into the bullshit that is exactly why I don't read that kind of comic. It was all, see issue 45 or see issue whatever of this, where the blah, blah, blah disease was blah, blah, blah.
See, here's the thing, right? With those editor notes in particular are a topic of great debate, because if you put them in, right, then it's like, well, now if I want to know, I know where to go. I don't have to go like hunt on the internet to figure out what the hell's going on. Because imagine if that note isn't there, something happens, and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
But at the same time, if you have a plot element that comes out of nowhere in a narrative that requires this meta external, it's like a Deus Ex Machina to explain the story because the storyteller didn't do it elegantly enough.
Yep.
Then there's a more fundamental flaw.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. But it's like, if you're gonna cross over like that, should you put the note there or should you not put the note there and just let it go unspoken?
I don't like to see the notes.
So you'd rather have there be no note, and then you read, and a guy says, "Oh," and then remember that bitch Sharon,
You know what,
and
Scott?
you don't
I'm
know who
gonna
Sharon is.
I'm going to do it a different way. If there is a note, I'm annoyed because now it's telling me, hey, you have to read this other comic series too to know what's going
Well,
on.
sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. Like sometimes the relation to that other comic will be so slight, and sometimes the
But
relation
then
will
why
be very.
bother even crossing it over?
But then sometimes the relation will be very strong.
But if it's strong, then you've got to read both or it's not going to make sense. Even if the note's there, you have to go read the other one or it still doesn't make any sense.
Yep. But at least you know which one to read. Whereas before, without the note, you don't even know what the fuck to read.
So all the note does is warn me, hey, this is one of those comics. And if the note isn't there, then it's just a plot element out of nowhere, which, you know what, happens all the time anyway in a lot of these 52. Didn't some of them already get canceled?
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, so I picked up, I picked these up and I read through them, and they'd all gotten way worse and kind of all blended together, and I don't want to ever read any more of these, except maybe Action Comics.
I'm going to get the trade of Action Comics number.
I'll read that.
When it shows up.
But anyway, things of the day. So, friend Kat pointed this out to us, and this is kind of amazing. I'm not really going to explain much about it. You should just watch the video and kind of skip around. You'll figure it out pretty quickly. But it's a dating game called Hatoful Boyfriend.
All right. Is it one where you're a girl trying to date guys, or we're a guy trying to date girls?
So, you're a girl, human girl.
Okay.
And, warning bell number 1, I had to specify human.
Or is it a gay one?
It's not a pony thing or anything, because that's the other thing I assume everyone was
I'm sure those
expecting.
those exist all over the place.
I'm sure as well.
Times a billion.
So, you're a girl, human girl. You go to a school for pigeons, and you
Like the bird, tweet,
try to date or not date.
Like the rats of the sidewalk?
The pigeons, yes. Now, some of them, they're basically, you've got to see this to believe it. But, it's all the typical dating game stuff.
Well, there's that other one with the disabled people, right?
But then you meet the pigeon, and it's not even like a drawing of a pigeon. It's not even like a stylized. It is just a picture of a pigeon.
A photograph.
And it's pretty great.
Okay.
This is kind of amazing.
There's another recent one that's been getting a lot of attention because you date disabled people, like a school for disabled people. So it's like all these people, like girl in a wheelchair, girl with a missing leg, all that kind of stuff.
This one is pretty awesome, though, and you should play it.
All right. So, sometimes you're in a forum on the internet or you're tweeting or something and you need a JPEG and you want to use your Courage Wolf, or maybe you want to use that little baby who's making the fist, right?
Do you know what he's called?
No. What's he called?
I have no idea, but I like that guy.
Or the raptor who's scratching his chin. or the guy who's like, why you know, or, Fry with the squinty eyes.
So I Googled baby fist and I can't find anything.
Right.
Anyway.
And, there's a whole bunch of meme generators out there to put, your impact font text on there.
Oh, he is called Baby Success.
Okay, let me try this. And you want to make the JPEG with the impact font, but you don't have Photoshop, you're not any good at it, and it's like you try to find generators for that stuff and none of them are really quite that good. Well, here you go. m3m3.us/meme. You go to this website, and it's the simplest generator in the universe. It's 3 text boxes and a button. You type into the second text box, right? You got to type in the top text and the bottom text for your impact font, obviously. And then you just type in the name of the generator. So what do you say? Was it Baby Success?
Baby Success.
So I'll type in Baby Success, and then I'll type in Rim Sucks, and I'll click Do This Thing. And here we have it. Oh, it said search fail. It's not actually called Baby Success.
Well, that's what the internet called it in my brief investigation.
Yeah, the only problem with this is you have to know the name of the thing. Like, I know that one guy is named Why You Know, so I type in Why You Know, and then I type in, Rim, Why You Know Good. And then, I have generated a Why You Know. There it is. Rim, Why You Know Good.
That could be useful. Now, does it host the image, or I have to save it to Imgur?
Let me try and see. It gives you a URL for your image.
That could be dangerous.
Yeah,
I feel like I should make a site like that, and then 1 year after it goes live, all goatsy.
It gives you a URL, and then you can use that URL and send it to Imgur if you want.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
But the URL format is actually really straightforward. So if you look at that URL format, you can just type the URL directly instead of filling out the form.
Huh, so it's dynamic.
Yeah, it's very dynamic.
All right, interesting.
Best meme generator I found. I'm going to use it a lot.
Very briefly, the meta moment. The book club books are not one but 2 books. The Little Prince and Wind, Sand, and Stars by...
Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
I finished Wind, Sand, and Stars. Did you?
I'm almost done.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty great.
It's pretty great. You should all read it.
Because I don't pick shit books like Rim.
We'll do a show on it soon, and then I'm going to pick a book.
Great.
You're going to love it.
Hopefully the book clubs will be more frequent.
We were at MagFest. Our panel, our lecture, Beyond Dungeons & Dragons, is on the internet. The 2 panels we were on, one of them, the video is kind of crap, so I'm not going to bother putting it online. The other one was me, Scott, and Dr. Hazard, and it was pretty good, so I'm putting that one online.
All right. Anything else? I
PAX
guess
East is
PAX
coming.
East, the tickets are already sold out. Oh, I guess the 3-day ones are, right?
Yep.
If you don't have a hotel and ticket already, you're fucked. We told you to get one the day they came out. You failed. That's tough.
Yep.
You don't deserve to go. That's about it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I can't believe we never did a show on this. I can't believe.
It's like we go through and we're like, man, there isn't anything recent that we've both seen, read, watched, whatever, to do a show on.
And usually
there must be something old we know we've all seen or read that we've done a show.
But then Scott will be like, Slayers. And then I look and I'm like, wow, so we reviewed both the Slayers movie and the Slayers TV show.
It's like, I can't believe
4 years ago.
I can't believe, and there's so many shows. It's like anything we come up with, we've already done the show on.
But recently, for people who weren't paying attention, all the Ghiblis were basically at the IFC in New York, so we've been going to see him, and I just saw Pompoko again. You know
I didn't see any.
Pompoko.
I mean, I've seen a lot of them, but
is a pretty great movie.
I didn't see any at the IFC.
I'm glad I saw it in the theater at least once, as opposed to having only seen it on the tiny crappy TV we had in Beacon.
Anyway,
Yep.
so we're looking for show ideas because I felt like we had a zillion Wednesday show ideas, but we didn't. And lo and behold, we came across something we never did a show on. I can't believe we haven't done a show on it. If we have, it's possible, and someone will tell us that we suck. But as far as
That's all Scott, because he is the one who said, and I quote,
as far as I can
checked.
tell, using my intensive, extensive, high quality, better than anyone else I know Google search skills, we have never done a show on Yotsuba.
Yotsuba is written by a guy you may know because he also did Azumanga Daioh. Kiyohiko Azuma.
Yep. Azumanga Daioh was his 4-panel comic strip that was also turned into a great anime series. It's called Azumanga Daioh because his name is Azuma, and it's a manga, Azumanga, that he did, and it was published in a magazine called Dengeki Daioh, which is mostly sort of perverted.
Yeah, well,
magazine.
it's the thing that we often talk. It's weird. This is the kind of stuff that
full of panty shots and cleavage.
we talk about at every convention, but we don't really talk about on Geeknights anymore because we've talked about a lot of these topics, I don't know, in 2005,
Yeah.
2006.
But anyway, Yotsuba is the comic he's working on now that he's still working on. New volumes keep coming out.
But the reason that Yotsuba or Azumanga Daioh, things like this often appear next to the weird or perverted or kind of sexy stuff is that seinen, not shonen, but seinen seems to have two kind of distinct branches. Really cute stuff and really violent and or sexy stuff because it's aimed at young adults, mostly men, but also women to a degree, at least here.
Mm-hmm.
So Yotsuba and Azumanga Daioh are kind of more seinen than they are anything else, even though...
Well, it's weird, right? You look at these things, and they look just really cute and moe, and you're like, oh, God, it's going to be, right? And there are, I guess, Azumanga Daioh has a panty shot and a couple boob shots somewhere in it. But Yotsuba has 0. But the point is it's like... You read these things, and you look at them, and at first glance, they're so cute, they must be for little girls or kids. And they sort of are. They work for that. But then it's like, no, actually, it's sort of like ponies. But it's like ponies on purpose, right? It's like ponies accidentally appealed to the older male audience. Yotsuba intentionally appealed to the older male audience, but using the same technique. It's like,
this is something important. This tells me something about marketing in America. People who advertise things to demographics in America have no goddamn idea what demographics actually want. Or I think there's a more subtle problem.
There are things that demographics want that nobody makes, so nobody is serving that particular. Like a demographic has more than one demand.
No, I'm going to take the separate track. The things that would be popular for a demographic are not useful because you cannot use those to sell things to that demographic that they don't care about. So the most coveted demographic is like the 20 to 29-year-old like white male demographic. Like that's what a lot of people really go after.
Because they got money and they're going to spend it.
But the kind of stuff that
on
those
stupid
kinds
shit
of
like spinning
advertisers
rims
are trying to sell to those people, it's not going to work because those people are actually the prime demographic for stuff like ponies and Yotsuba.
Yeah, it's like, look at me, for example, right? You can make ponies and I'll watch that shit, but you can't sell me pony shit. The only pony shit you could sell me, you ain't making. And you can't profit if you made the good pony shit. What are you gonna make? $100 statue? I'm probably not gonna buy that either. You have to make a $50 statue.
Scott, you know what they got to do? They got to make busts.
I wouldn't buy a pony bust. I hate busts. I only like full statues.
You know what I would buy though? That the statue of the horse head that's in Twilight's apartment.
That's a good one.
I would buy that.
Yeah, very subtle. Good.
Actually, my grandpa can make that for me. Anyway, this is the pony show. If we're going to review Yotsuba, I want to say one thing. If you have not read Yotsuba.
What the fuck?
Or you haven't watched or read Azumanga Daioh.
What the fuck?
Don't even listen to this. Just go read them and watch them.
Show's
because
over.
Yotsuba is one of the most charming things I've ever read in my life.
So Yotsuba is a manga. It's actually a normal manga, but it's not just 4 panels like Azumanga Daioh is. And it's separated. Each chapter stands alone. It's very episodic, but there is a little bit of tie-in, right? So it's like in one chapter they'll be in the hot air balloon, and the chapter after that might be about something else. I forget the order. It might be about the farm or something. But they'll be like, they'll mention the hot air balloon when they're on the farm, or they'll introduce a character in one chapter, and that character will still be around, so you're expected to sort of know who they are. But other than that, there's no continuity whatsoever.
You really like Jumbo and Yonda are some of the most important ones to know.
Yeah, it's like as long as you sort of know the characters, you're going to be set, and you can figure out who they are at any time. So basically, here's how it goes. There's a Japanese town. It's pretty normal suburbia, right? There's a dude, and he has a daughter named Yotsuba, and they come from a faraway tropical island, but they speak Japanese. And Yotsuba's like, 3, 4? She's real small. Not even in kindergarten. She's like not even nursery school, I don't think. Like barely almost nursery school.
She's smarter than most people I know, and she's 5.
Right, okay. So, and he brings her to this town, and he works from home, but he's busy mostly. And the Yotsuba just sort of hangs around the house and hangs out with the neighbors and makes mischief.
And gets into trouble.
And she does cute things and such.
Cute? Almost doesn't do justice what is going on in Yotsuba.
Well, I mean, it's called Yotsuba To. Like, there's an ampersand at the end of the title and then an exclamation point because each chapter is Yotsuba and something. Like, Yotsuba and Cardbow, Yotsuba and candy, Yotsuba and water guns, Yotsuba and something. And each chapter she encounters a thing like bicycles or flowers or who knows what. And then it's all about that thing. So he's basically, if you've got an idea like that, cranking out chapters must be just the easiest fucking thing in the world. Because you just look around your house or outside on the street and you see something. You're like, oh, the bookstore. Bookstore episode.
Yep. What would Yotsuba do if she encountered my favorite thing, a bird scare balloon?
Yeah, it's like you just walk around, you look at things, and you can just come up. There's a bridge. Yotsuba and the bridge. Yotsuba and the cable car. Yotsuba and the train. Yotsuba and the car. You know, it's just transportation related. I mean, because I'm looking out the window in New York City, right? So that's what I'm thinking of. But, you know, it's like Yotsuba and the office building elevator. Yotsuba and, you know, kindergarten, if kindergarten ever starts.
Now, the real, like, the drive, why this manga is great is that it's so lighthearted and so just charming. And Yotsuba is so perplexed by the things around her, but yet at the same time has a certain level of insight into these things.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's typically what it does is it takes, you know, that aspect of childhood in that, you know, kids, they're cute, they react to things in interesting and unexpected ways because they don't understand them yet.
Children tend to ask the obvious questions that adults never ask.
They also have an incredible insight, and it takes those aspects of childhood, puts them in Yotsuba, and amplifies them times 100 and gets rid of all the other aspects.
But at the same time, there's a very strong... It's kind of like Yotsuba's there, and then there's the straight man cast of everyone else in the world around her.
Yeah, well, not everyone else is a total straight man, but they're pretty much...
Relative to Yotsuba, they are.
Yeah,
but
they're
all
normal people.
But they all will have like a little bit of Yotsuba-style reactions to certain kinds of things.
And they do. Each character actually has a personality. It's not just like a whole... Right? It's like... You know, Jumbo, he's just sort of like this chill, cool dude, but he's gigantic and he's a little shy and weird with the ladies.
I really like Asagi, the oldest sister.
The oldest sister, who's you don't get too much of her early on.
She's so like, sarcastic.
Yeah, but she's like sort of like cynical and slightly badass. And then you've got, you know, the neighbor mom is just sort of like a cool, totally awesome mom who's all responsible and shit. And then, you know, basically, it's mostly the neighbors are the heaviest used characters, right?
Jumbo's 1,000 feet tall, and Yonda's no good.
Yeah, I love how Yonda, like, oh, that guy's no good. And they keep talking about him, but you don't see him. And then eventually, he shows up.
Spoilers!
And he's actually no good.
He's pretty no good.
He's like, then there's a guy in the Baltimore Ravens. His name is Yonda.
No good.
He's no good.
You know, it's telling, you know, we were reading this way back, and... Yonda became kind of our term for no good.
Yeah, we're like, man, that's so Yonda. And that meant it was no good.
Yep.
So the arts in it is obviously, you know, the typical Azuma art style, the same as Azumanga Daioh. But the backgrounds, he loads up on the backgrounds. Azumanga Daioh didn't really have backgrounds so much. Yeah, Yotsuba, he lays it out. I'm sure his assistant does that shit or something. But, I mean, the backgrounds are pretty great. They're almost as good as Death Note backgrounds. They're crazy. And that's really important because it's all about like what Yotsuba's doing. Is she in her house? Is she in the neighbor's house? Is she, you know, she's riding a hot air balloon. She's driving in a car.
Oh my God.
So all that stuff becomes really, is she in the playground?
What was the name of the bear that she took in the hot air balloon? Like Jarlman?
Yeah, something like that.
When he fell out. Like the bear just falls out of the balloon. And of course, Yotsuba is devastated by this. And it just lands in this field, like, kind of standing, like, straight up. And I think Asagi or someone's over there, and she just has this reaction that is priceless.
Yeah. It's always, like, the facial expression is what it's all about. Because, you know, you'll see, like, crazy eyes or dot eyes or wiggly mouth.
Coupled with the pause.
But it's not...
The manga pause of, you know, multiple panels of the face slightly changing, like, building up to the reaction, a.k.a. the explosion.
Yeah, and it's like he won't do the cheap cop-out. Like, a lot of old mangas and animes do the super deform. Like, you know, Slayers even does that, where it's like, you know, but this, like, you'll keep the character on model and then just make the crazy extreme deformed facial expression, but he won't deform the whole thing and make it crazy chibi with like triangle arms suddenly, you know. He'll do the same thing that you just said, where it's like you'll see Yotsuba and it'll be the same frame 3 times, right, of her, like her head is down, and then the 4th frame her head is up and her eyes are like wiggle wiggle wiggle.
Oh my God, Yotsuba angry is one of my favorite things, which is funny because with a pet, right, or a little kid, you like them when they're happy, but you also like it is enjoyable to watch a pet animal.
It's like
who is annoyed and perplexed by something that is not harming them, but is simultaneously like a dog who can't figure something out.
It doesn't matter
really
what their
bothered by
emotion is. It just matters the form their emotion takes. Like you can laugh at a baby crying, or you can laugh at a baby laughing.
I just
You
pictured
can
Scott
laugh at
standing next to a baby just laughing.
It's like you can laugh at almost any reaction it's having if it's having an extreme crazy reaction.
Well, like for example, one of our bunnies, Moogie, is a little temperamental. Like he's a worried rabbit. So sometimes we'll be sitting there, and he'll just be like, "This is no good," and he'll like walk over to the corner, look at us, and thump, and just kind of be like, "And I want to go pet him, but I'm also just I can't help but laugh at him being so moody.
Exactly.
So, you know what? I realized there's a 3-way recommendation. If you like My Little Pony, Azumanga Daioh, or Yotsuba, any one of the 3, you will like the other 2.
Probably.
Pretty much straight up.
And it's weird, like Yotsuba has sort of, if you don't notice, like Yotsuba, her name means 4-leaf clover.
And she has 4 pigtails.
And her hair is green and she has 4 pigtails.
She is the unofficial mascot of 4chan. Not by any action on Azuma's part. That's just 4chan being 4chan.
Yeah. But it's like, you'll see her around the internets, and it's like, don't think that because she's 4chan's unofficial mascot that there's something going on there that's wrong. It's like, the comic is the comic. It's a good comic on its own, regardless of what people may do with it or use it for, or what comics other fans may draw with Yotsuba in them and such.
That was a pretty scary disclaimer, actually.
Yeah, ignore that. I mean, it's, Rule 34 is in effect, is basically what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's always in effect. If you didn't read, it's like, Stu Leonard has the 3 rules in the front of his store. He's like, the customer is always right. If the customer is wrong, reread rule number 1. It's like, well, rule 34. If this, and then rule number 35 is like, well, if not rule 34, reread rule 34, because guess what? Rule 34.
So there is no anime of Yotsuba, and
there
I
won't
don't know
be.
if there ever will be.
There was a news, when I did the search.
I could see economic pressure like causing it to happen, but I don't think anyone involved would want it to happen.
I did when I was searching to see if we did an episode on this, I found a news where we talked about, there was a link that where Azuma discussed
he said he doesn't think it would work well.
Why he would never do an anime for Yotsuba, so I don't think he's gonna.
However, I don't think it's a Calvin and Hobbes situation. I think someone could go to him with a sack of money, and it might happen.
Who knows?
It's hard to pass up a sack of money.
Who knows what his personality
Waters is probably
like.
the only person in the world I know of who has actually turned down the sack of money.
The thing is, he keeps doing Yotsuba. Volumes keep coming out regularly. There aren't like huge delays. It was published in the U.S. by ADV, which failed, obviously.
Yeah.
And then it's now published by, I think, Yen Press, if I'm not mistaken.
Which, sadly, not to harp on translations, but at least initially, like the first few Yen Presses I read, the translation was kind of shit compared to the original translation.
Well, I think the biggest difference in that fan people care about it so much is, the new one, the Yen Press one, or the new one, I don't even know, I'm pretty sure it's Yen Press.
It was less, like, nuanced.
It does a lot of the, keeping in honorifics and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of a direct translation. Like, a lot of the sentences just really don't sound natural. And the ADV one, by comparison, read really naturally, and actually a little bit of the charm is lost.
The thing is, I don't even really notice that much. I just read it, and it's great.
I've read entire volumes of Yotsuba in Japanese, and I can't read really any Japanese.
Yeah, it's like, there are a lot of Japanese volumes that are out, and the English ones aren't out yet. If you can get the Japanese ones, even if you don't know Japanese and you'll never be able to read it, you can get like 50% of the jokes just looking at it. You don't really need to read the words so much. If you know the characters, just looking at what they're doing, that's usually enough. Even though the dialogue it's not like, if you're a beginning Japanese reader, you probably wouldn't be able to read it because it is real Japanese language and such. But
it's pretty simple.
The quantity of dialogue is low. There isn't a lot of words. It's not like incredibly wordy with lots of sci-fi words going on all over the place. It's like they don't say much. They say about as much as normal people say. And it's a lot of just, panels without even talking, or, people looking at something, or a person says one thing and then the rest of the page is them doing the thing. So you don't really need to read so much at all to understand what's going on. You can tell just by the panels, and it's just that good, a well-produced comic that you can follow it sequentially. So many comics are, if you took the words out of like a Marvel comic it wouldn't mean dick. It would just be like, there's a panel with Spider-Man in it, and there's a panel with
Wait
Wolverine
a minute,
in
but
it.
how will I know whether or not he's actually punching that little guy?
And it's like every panel has a different guy in it in a different place doing something different. It would make no sense. But Yotsuba makes total sense, even without words. And you should read it and buy all the volumes. What's wrong with you? I can't believe there are people who haven't read this yet.
Now, I don't know if we've actually done a show on Azuma ga Daioh either, so rather than talk about it, I'm just going to let it be for a night like this when it's late.
Same shit in high school.
Yeah.
Same guy, same shit.
Little different feeling, little more sarcastic at times.
Remember, this is primarily humorous, though, which is great because there really aren't that many, comics that are good and funny and awesome, and, except this one.
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.